Devlin, Untamed.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The Platform.
iOS, it's only sport. That's the name of this show. That's the name of the podcast. We do a sports show 1 till 4 every afternoon on the platform. My name is Martin Devlin. Lachlan War alongside. So much sport to talk about. Women's Football World Cup final, Spain winning that. International rugby. More matches over the weekend as we head towards Springboks versus All Blacks this weekend. The Warriors win again, and people are moaning. What? They're not playing. What? How can you be moaning when the Warriors have won 15 games? It's more than the last 2 years combined. LBP, let's be positive with Twizel's Matt Gunn, Premier League Motorsports. So much on the agenda today. Tablets in hand, I say gather my flock. It is time for a sermon. What have we learned from the weekend? Let's go to the mountaintop.
We live in an amazing, amazing world, and it's wasted on the crappiest generation of just spoiled idiots.
What do we learn over the weekend? In no particular order, let's start with the Friday night. The Warriors keep winning, not convincing. Again, just like the weekend before versus West Tigers. Manly, another scratchy performance, but a win's a win. When Melbourne play like that, it's called gutsy. When Penrith do, it's called a blip. So when the Warriors win their 15th game of the season, and it wasn't the greatest that the team has played all year, you got to say 15 wins, top 4, home semi-final, we will take it. Ireland are definitely the top seed for the Rugby World Cup. They are still the best team in the world. Another impressive, comfortable win yesterday, this time versus England. They just do everything right, the Irish. They beat all opponents put in front of them. They win by playing impressive physical rugby. They've got great strength and depth. I say whoever beats them wins the Rugby World Cup in France. England, though, are still stupid. The dumbest rugby team on the planet, bar none. Last week, Captain Owen Farrell saw red for a no-arms shoulder hit to the jaw. All the controversy, the headlines, the condemnation all week. Were any of the players watching? Well, clearly not. Billy Vunipola does exactly the same versus Ireland. Another red card, and expect him, like Farrell, to be missing the first couple of weeks of the World Cup when it starts. We learned that Man City will win the Premier League again this season. No team has won 4 old First Division titles or 4 Premier Leagues in a row. They are about to do that. 2 games in, it's painfully obvious already. The Saudi sovereign wealth funders are just coasting. Injuries, abstentions, they don't even play well. Comfortably beat a very good Newcastle side. It's all too easy. They just look unbeatable. The Black Caps provided over the weekend the worst ever international result of any cricket side that has ever left New Zealand. Losing to the UAE? There is no explanation for that. That is like the All Blacks losing to Uruguay. It should never happen, ever, under any set of circumstances. Finally, we learned that Spain are the best women's football side on earth. Brilliant tournament, totally captivating, record numbers, global interest. Will it mean a revolution in playing and spectator numbers for women's domestic football here and in Australia? Well, probably not. But it was a fantastic World Cup. You've got to say that. People loved it. And New Zealanders, we just adore an international event, don't we? That's what it means. That's all it means. It was fantastic. It was fun. And no one cares about the 3rd and 4th place playoff at a World Cup. No one. Rugby, football, basketball, netball, whatever. It's a world championship. You lose in the semi-final. That should be the end of it. Sweden versus Australia at the Women's World Cup. Don't know, don't care, didn't watch. Who won means diddly squat.
Devlin.
What do you want? We want information. Information. You won't get it.
The Platform.
Often headlines, though, of a sporting event. There's so much sports news. I don't know how we're going to fit it all in.
We can't fit it all in, so I'm going to try and do all of this in 2 sentences if I can.
Yep.
FIFA Women's World Cup. Spain have won, beating England in the final 1-0. That final was in Sydney last night. Sentence number 1. Sentence number 2. I don't need a second sentence for that one. Okay. Spanish captain and World Cup final hero Olga Carmona found out after the match, she scored the goal that won the game, found out after the match that her father had died.
Yeah, crazy.
Very sad.
Yeah,
very sad. She scored
brings back memories of
Zach Guilford.
There you go.
His father died. I don't know if her father might have been in attendance. I don't know if he was in attendance. Obviously, Zach Guilford's father was actually in attendance when that happened. So she scored that winning goal in the 29th minute, and Spain were the better side. I thought England would win it, but no, from everything that I saw in the highlights and the stats and whatnot, Spain the better side. A little bit of controversy controversy coming out of this final, though. Now, please correct me, Martin, if I mispronounce this name. Royal Spanish Football Federation President Luis Rubiales.
No, I think it's that's Spanish for Ramatanga down a throater, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. So, Rubiales has been criticised by viewers of the FIFA Women's World Cup final after kissing Spain star Jenny Hermoso on the lips at the trophy presentation. So he's giving all the players kisses on like cheeks and foreheads and whatnot, and then he kisses her on the lips.
He's smackaroonies, mate.
Yeah.
Grabs her for
but no, his both hands are on her
around the
ears.
head. Yeah, that's it.
She's got no escape. Hermoso told Spanish TV, yeah, I did not enjoy that.
No.
So this isn't some sort of like relationship that's now coming to light. This is just some bloke going, I'm taking advantage here.
Yeah.
I quite like her.
Yeah,
Not very good. Taupo has been confirmed as the venue for Supercars' return to New Zealand in 2024.
Woo! Eric will talk about this after 3.
The Australian Motor Racing Championship was last staged on the side of the Tasman last year. I went to that. The New Zealand government, via its major events fund, will back the sport's return, of course, racing at Taupo International Motorsport Park. The Black Caps have avoided a series defeat to the United Arab Emirates, winning their third and deciding 2020 international by 32 runs in Dubai. It should have been decided in 2 matches. The fact that it has to go to a third like this where there's something riding on it is just it's awful, for goodness sake. Kiwi rally star Hayden Paddon and co-driver John Kennard have again put their names in world motorsport history books after becoming the first non-Europeans to win the European Rally Championship. Good stuff, Hayden Paddon and John Kennard. Brilliant. Premier League this morning, 2 games. Chelsea. Well, I thought after last week's performance against us, when I say us, I mean Liverpool, they actually looked half decent. I thought they might go on and win this game against West Ham, who are just an average side. West Ham winning 3-1 and had 10 men for like the last half hour. Aston Villa smashing Everton 4-0. Everton were awful. Absolutely. Watch these highlights. They were, if you haven't seen the game, appalling. Tomorrow, Arsenal and Crystal Palace play at 7 a.m. Brighton top of the table. 6 points. They and Man City, the only 2 teams to win both their games so far. And I think, for the time being, unless I'm missing something here, that is what is making news, Martin.
Devlin.
Oh my goodness me!
The platform.
Viva la Roja! The Spanish women are the world football champions, and so becoming the very first country ever to win both men's and women's football World Cups. It's been a fantastic tournament, thoroughly enjoyable. And I think most people who've had a passing interest have probably been quite surprised by the skill level and inspired by just the enjoyment factor and how many people in New Zealand went along to watch. Miles Davis. Football not coming home, mate. Spain with a better side on the night, you got to say.
So was it an international game on? I was watching the Premier League with West Ham playing absolute rubbish and pounding Chelsea.
Yeah, I was trying to avoid that conversation.
Only joking. Do you know something, though? It is so typical England. Before going into the game, I was thinking, this isn't the blokes, this is the women. They've looked the better side. I mean, don't forget Japan pounded Spain 4-0. They got defensive vulnerabilities. England looks really good against Australia. And I thought, yeah, that's it, they're going to win. But it must be a contagious disease for English football that when it comes to the maman critique, that they fall over. And they did. And I don't think that even the most rabid England fan wouldn't deny that the Spanish deserved to win.
Yeah, well, you just didn't play, did you? I mean, that's just bizarre. I don't. I mean, they seemed to be choked in midfield. What was the selection wrong? Did she get her tactics wrong?
I don't know whether it was the tactics and that. I honestly, I mean, who knows? You know, you can't get inside those players' heads. But I think the fact that they were considered by the public, if not necessarily by the TAB, but they're considered by the public to be the favourites. I think that might have had a bit of a sort of a effect on their mentality and on their psyche. But to be honest, you know, the Spanish aren't a bad side. But when you look at what, you know, everyone was going on about England, you know, certain top players were injured and they've had the old, you know, ups and downs and sending off and all these sort of things. But when you look at that Spanish side, even the ones that are in the squad can't stand the coach. You know, maybe they respect him or fear him, I don't know. But, I mean, they had 12 decent players pull out, 15 at first, 3 of them, you know, relented in the end and went across there. How on earth did they manage to get all that way? And after losing 4-0 to Japan, as I mentioned, how do you raise yourself to that? How do you go on and beat everyone in sight and go on and win the title? I mean, it is a sort of Cinderella type story with the coach being the wicked witch.
It also is a rewrites everything that you think about. The team has to be on the same page as their coach. I mean, quite obviously, you don't. I don't know whether or not in their little bubble they all committed to each other and that's what actually happened. But yeah, it's just a bizarre story when you look at it, isn't it? I mean, every single thing about it says this team is going to disintegrate terribly in public at this tournament, and they didn't.
Well, I can think straight off the top of my head when you mentioned that. I mean, and you're right, that is a sort of common thinking. But I can think of 2 incidents straight away where the coach was basically dismissed by the players when they would go out and actually do the business. 3 times actually now. Twice with English rugby. The 2003 World Cup, when Martin Johnson just told basically Woodward to bugger off when they went into extra time. We're in charge of that. We'll sort it. We don't want to listen to your dribble anymore. When old, what's his name, Brian, the other coach, went in 2011, when after they got pounded by South Africa, the players took over and ended up making it all the way to the final, and were a little bit unlucky maybe not to get a result against South Africa again in the final, much closer there. And then the 2010 World Cup, where for the All Whites, where basically, Ricky was sort of pushed aside for the likes of Nelson and Simon Elliott, and they basically took over control and went through it unbeaten. So it has been done before. Maybe we give too much importance to the coach, although I'm not a believer in that as well. I think tactics is maybe one thing, but you can get anyone to do that. I think the man management is the key, and I think in this instance the players have said, let's forget, and they may have even used their dislike of him and their upset with him as motivation. Let's go and do it despite him. And whatever it was, it worked for him.
Olga Carmona, what a tournament. I mean, scoring the winner in the semi-final. We talked about that last week. Then a cracking left foot shot. Fizzed past the keeper. I don't know whether she should have got a fingertip to that. And then their most awful tragedy afterwards, that her father died during that game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you, I mean, I'm sure, well, I'd like to think that she'd say, I'd rather the old man be alive and we hadn't won. You do wonder, I mean, the sick side of me wonders, I wonder whether, if the last thing he saw was his daughter scoring and he had a big cardiac arrest, and that would be a decent way to go. If one of my sons scored a winning goal for England at the World Cup or a Champions League final for West Ham, now I'm starting to sound as if I've been drinking, but did that, I'd die a happy man. So, I mean, it is a tragedy. I don't know the circumstances beyond his death, but hey, she'll go on and gain strength for it, and I think she'll feel proud that would hopefully be one of the last memories that her dad had.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full. The Minister of Common Sense steps in.
Next!
We have issues.
We need to talk.
Several questions about the Women's World Cup in general.
Next!
Did Spain deserve the win, Lachlan?
Yes. Better team.
On the day?
Yes.
Do you agree or not that they are the best team in the tournament?
Well, you can sit there and debate for hours that had they played this team or had this team been a little bit better on that day, that if everyone's playing it close to their best, who's actually the best. At the end of the day, they won the World Cup. So they're the best team in the world.
Right now?
Yes. They have the trophy.
Do you concur with Miles that they're the best team in the world or they're the best team at this tournament?
Both.
Well, they are. This
is the barometer for how good you are. You
4
can sit there and
years
say,
from now, you can call yourself the best team in the world until you get dethroned at the next tournament.
Next!
What went wrong for England then?
Well, I didn't watch all of the game, to be honest. I only saw little bits and pieces here and there, and I saw a little bit of the highlights. I just thought from what I saw, at least, Spain were just a little bit more polished. England just didn't look.
England froze, mate.
Yeah.
It was one of those kind of games where a team is in the biggest game of their lives and they just don't turn up to play.
It was funny because I thought that a little bit. Well, not so much that they didn't turn up, but with the semi-final, I thought that was the first time during the tournament where I thought Australia in the semi-final against England, you can throw as many punches as you want, but when you don't have the class of your opposition, it's going to show through. And England pulled away and won that game and were the better side.
Too.
And it was like that was sort of flipped around to this game where it just felt like England threw a few punches, but Spain were just the better side.
Next!
What is your biggest takeaway from the tournament?
I would say it's more so an observation. I knew, like you, that even when Grant Robertson was flailing his arms up and saying, "Get behind them, New Zealand, what's going on?" I knew that, shut up, well, people will go to games, they'll buy tickets. We
always do.
New Zealand do a good job of getting, and Australia too, getting behind sports tournaments that are here. I am genuinely, I'm pleasantly, I wouldn't say surprised, but happy with the attention that the tournament got in New Zealand. I am gobsmacked by how much it swept up Australia, and as the Matildas in particular. I can't get my head around the viewing numbers for that semi-final of 11.5 million people tuned into one channel to watch that live broadcast.
I wonder what, if anything else, is going to inspire Australians in those numbers to watch whatever sport it is next.
And I don't know what sport it would be. It's got to be a World Cup. It would have to be a men's World Cup when they get to the semis miraculously or something like that.
Yeah. I don't even think if the Wallabies got to the final of the Rugby World Cup that they would get that kind of audience. My biggest takeaway, people, was just simply that I'm just awestruck and inspired by the amount of New Zealanders that tuned in, bought tickets, went along and had fun. And in the current state of our country, with, I don't have to tell you, rampant crime, inflation, petrol prices through the roof, cost of living and everything else. It's just a really beautiful, bright, shining light for a couple of weeks there, wasn't it? Which is what sport is actually meant to do for us.
It was fun. I went to the quarterfinal between Japan and Sweden, and there was a huge amount of Japanese fans. There was a good chunk of Swedish fans as well. And I don't know anything about the teams, and I'm chanting Sweden, and having a go and whatnot.
That's it.
But it was a real, just a constant, steady energy in the crowd. It was a lot of fun.
Hey, look, I was saying it about the Black Ferns Rugby World Cup final last year. It was just a really fun thing to go along to.
Next!
Will these attendances, interest, excitement be reflected in the domestic product in this country when the Phoenix team kicks off? No, and it's not going to. No. And despite the mass media ramming it down your throat, it's not. It's a different experience. It's a different set of circumstances, different teams.
It certainly can have
an
impact.
It's not a world championship.
Yeah,
Hopefully it means that there are going to be others who pick up the game and play.
Well, that's what I'm going to say. There'll be, I'm sure there'll be many younger girls now.
Let's go back to 2011. Did all of a sudden, after winning the World Cup at home here in New Zealand, there's just an absolute crush of young kids playing rugby? Doesn't seem to be.
No.
Doesn't seem. In 1995, when we won the America's Cup, we had the biggest parades ever throughout the country. 60,000 people turning up here, Wellington, packing the street. All of a sudden, did all the kids start yachting?
No.
Or boat? No, they didn't. No. So again, it's just mainstream media clickbait rubbish. Enjoy it for what it was. It was a really fun tournament.
Yeah.
And hopefully it means that there are a few people who actually, from that, then go, oh, I might like to play or get my kids to play, rather than just this huge mass exodus from every other sport in the country to play.
Next!
Best thing about the football was what? To me, a couple of things. One, that the women play without the histrionics of the men. And the play acting, the diving, all of that, and the assault and abuse of the referees. I like that. I would love to bring all of that back into the men's game, because those are the biggest blights on the men's game. The worst thing about it for me, and it's just a slight criticism, the athleticism isn't there in a number of areas, which, I mean, when I watch football, I love watching the goalkeepers, just making these humongous across goals. So you don't get that. So you've got to adjust your head around that kind of stuff. It's not a criticism, it's just what it is, though. So it's not a best and worst things, but those are the two things I did like about it, and I would like to see improve.
There was a bit, I didn't notice it at all in the group stage, but I noticed when it got to the knockout games, there was a lot more theatrical activity from some of the women's players. And boy, especially the game that I was at, the time wasting. Geez, they love the time wasting as well. I can't think of a criticism. There's nothing.
Good.
There's nothing.
Good in that case, great. You don't have to.
I wouldn't sit there and say, "Oh, well, it's not. It's not the same as men's football." And I'm the same as you. Or I watch my Liverpool on and punching the couch for the first half an hour on Sunday morning. But I'm not sitting there going, "Oh, that was an awful pass. Oh man, we'll do better there." I just sat there enjoying the matches.
Rugby. All Blacks left on Friday for the UK, and then the World Cup. We've got a massive test match up against the Springboks this weekend. Our final warm-up before we play the opening group match, an opening World Cup match against France. Justin Marshall won't be there calling it for Sky. He'll be there for Supersport. He'll be on your platform right throughout. Ian Foster and the All Blacks. We got to play our best team regardless, don't we?
I absolutely think so. Look, let's break it down. At the end of the day, the side that was going along with such rhythm, that beat South Africa comprehensively, went over to Melbourne, did a number there, and equally did a job on Argentina, would not have played since, I think, or Melbourne, which was around about the 27th or something of July. So they need a hit out, mate, because they all got rested for the game on the 5th of August in Dunedin. And then they will get a 2-week break after they play on Friday, which is the 25th, before they play France. So in the spell of about 6 weeks, those players possibly would have only played 2 test matches. So
yeah, right.
Absolutely, they need to get out there. They need to play. Like, they haven't played enough up until this Friday. So, yes, I absolutely feel that we need to get them out there. Maybe some guys like Lester Fainganuku, who plays so well in Dunedin, and possibly David Havili, who hasn't had his opportunity to make a mark on his jersey, will get opportunities. But the rest of it, I think, needs to stay the same as what it was in Melbourne.
Justin, what do you say then, to the argument that, players can get injured and we could drop a guy in one of these games? Is that just an occupational hazard?
Oh, mate, players can get injured at training. Look at what happened with the All Blacks in World Cup. Dan Carter didn't get hurt playing a game.
No,
he
good
got
point.
hurt at training.
Yes.
It happens all the time, and you cannot put them in cotton wool because that's when they will get injured. The fact of the matter is, someone like Aaron Smith, we need him. He's valuable. We need him for the Rugby World Cup. He's probably the key player that we don't want to lose. But at the end of the day, he hasn't played any rugby in the last 6 weeks. And we need him on form and we need him playing well. And if the worst happens, that's when we adjust and adapt and just have to get on with it. But the good thing is, you lose someone like Aaron Smith, but the rest of the team have been playing together. So those 14 guys, when the new player comes in, they are in rhythm, they are in synergy, and the team doesn't falter as much because they have been playing together, they're playing with confidence, and that player can slot in to a really good setup.
I'm hoping when we get to the World Cup that we see Ian Foster with this attitude from France, and then the next game is against Namibia. I don't care. I want to see the 18 play. I want to see the 18 play against Italy. And if you're going to give anyone a spell, then the game against Uruguay is perfectly placed before the quarterfinal. That's how I'd tactically approach it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you, mate. We're on the same page there.
Great.
And look, if they want to give opportunities out, perhaps in even the Namibia game after a pretty torrid battle against France, get that team back out there and then introduce that off the bench. Look, with the greatest respect, we could clear our bench at half-time. Players can play multiple positions. We're still going to beat Namibia.
Yes.
It's not the end of the world. But you could actually put all 8 reserves on after 40 minutes and give 8 players who you feel need it 40 minutes off. And if we need to adjust and adapt and push players around, look at the Crusaders, mate. A couple of their games, I think they ended up playing with, 14 or 13 men, but they still managed to get the job done because they were that good and they were that confident.
International rugby over the weekend. Did you see Kolisi chase after that Welsh guy? I mean, what knee injury? Mate.
Oh, mate. Yeah, he is a magical player, and I think, the fact that he's been able to get himself fit, and there was massive doubt whether or not he could, he's inspirational for South Africa, and doing those sorts of things is what makes the rest of the players just want to play for him and play for their country. He got a really good offload just close to the line to try assist. He's back, and that is a good thing for South Africa.
Well, they were just awfully impressive, weren't they? Mightily impressive against Wales. And look, I don't know. You saw Pollard in the stand. Whether he comes back, I don't know. I mean, this Welsh side is in all kinds of trouble, and they'd be very thankful for the draw that they've got. I mean, I don't even... Look, I could even see them actually getting upset. I think they've got Fiji in their group, haven't they? I could even see Fiji actually beating them. But that Springbok side, what do we read into that and before we play them this weekend?
Well, we've got to read a lot into it, which is, again, why I'm banging the drum that we've got to get our strongest possible side that we can out there. Because at the moment, getting the wood on the Mount Smart, what we do not want them to do is come out again, if we put a B side out, like Australia, like we did against Australia and we struggled, and all of a sudden that juggernaut that is the Springboks, that we are most likely to meet in a quarterfinal, is all confident again. Do another Mount Smart on them.
Yeah.
And then they'll be starting to scratch their head, regardless of what happens to them in their pool stages. Get to a quarterfinal against the All Blacks. They've been beaten twice by us already. We've figured them out. And all of a sudden, they're going to have to find some form of confidence and some different form of game plan to beat us because we've beaten them twice already this year. But if we let them off the hook and give them a sniff, we know how good they are at World Cups. They know themselves well. They are a dangerous side.
Ireland, Justin, every time I watch them, and look, and I was getting up watching Man United get dicked, and so I recorded that game and I watched it afterwards at 4. I didn't watch it at 4, but I watched the United game at 4:20. I watched that one afterwards, and I tell you what, they impress me every time I watch them. I think that they're just the tightness of the way that they play, the pattern that they play, they are ruthless. They seem to have strength and depth. They never give a sucker an even break. They never take the pressure off, do they? I mean, since the Six Nations this year, I can't find that much to criticise Ireland about or find fault with them. No, they are a very, very well-drilled side. They're functioning at the moment without Johnny Sexton being the architect as well. They've got good players across the board. Their back row, even when they lose a player, they can slot players in seamlessly. Their front five is mobile, but yet tough. And they've got quality in the midfield, competition for places. Yeah, they are impressive, and they are a very hard side to break down because defensively they're very good as well. They are such a good side that you feel like you're in the game, but to break them apart when you've got the ball is not easy to do. So, yeah, look, my money for this tournament, obviously with my All Black heart beating, is on the All Blacks. But if I was picking a team that I would like to see win it and enjoy to see win it, but equally who I feel could win it if it's not the All Blacks, it would be Ireland above all the other teams that are at that cup, including France. To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full.
The Tight Five.
Every now and again, the brain just completely goes on you, doesn't it, mate? I was just lost staring outside because I'm sure I saw some blue sky. Phil had texted in a bit
there is
ago and says,
"Well, it's great
there coming." And wow, I'm just mesmerised by it. I haven't seen it for
hot at this sun.
Like a year. Yeah, I know.
But it's still grey pretty much everywhere.
Howling and hosing down it was overnight. All right, Lachlan, I've just got a few questions here for you. 60 seconds, 5 separate topics. When the bell goes ding, so do we on to the next one. I want to know, who's the best team in the NRL right now? I want to know who's the best team in the NPC and did you watch any? I want to know who's the best team in the Premier League right now. I want to know who's the best team in Women's World Football. And I want to know who's the best team in International Rugby. So let's kick it with the NRL. Number one topic on the agenda. Who is the best team in the NRL right now? Right now.
It's got to be the Panthers. It's not a reason to suggest that they're not the best team. They've won the same number as... No, they've won one more than Brisbane.
17 and 5, exactly the same.
No, but they've won one... Because we've won 6 straight, I think. They've won 7 straight, haven't they? Or have they won 6 straight as well? I think they've won 6 or 7 straight. So, no, their form's been brilliant. As you say, they've lost 5 games, and I think all those pretty much were in the early, middle parts of the season where it was funny because at the time when they were still beating teams by about 20 points, we're like, yeah, but they don't look like Penrith, but they were still winning by a lot. They're sitting pretty comfy on top of the table. They'll be the minor premiers because they won't drop a game unless they manage to lose to the Cowboys somehow. I can't remember who they've got this week, and I think they've got the Cowboys in the last round. So, no, the Panthers are the best team. I mean, I'm biased in saying that the Broncos are a very close second, but it'd be Penrith, absolutely.
I agree with you, and the reason that I'm going to say that is because they have conceded 100 and something points less than every other team.
Yeah.
Okay, so a clumsy way of saying it, but in terms of defence, they're for and against.
And actually, you know what's incredible? On average per game, the points that they're conceding, this is the worst of this 4-year run of theirs.
No way.
So in terms of the points that I'm
just doing a calculation. They're conceding 12 points a game.
The lowest.
That's it?
It was like 10.5 they conceded per game in 2020. And it's slowly gotten higher. And now it's in the 12s.
Mate.
I know.
Sack the coach.
Second. Get him out of a job.
Yeah, and so I think that the Panthers and the Broncos, look, I'll obviously, be corrected if it comes to the playoffs and somebody does upset either of those two teams in the first round of the playoffs. But the way it's looking at the moment, with 2 rounds to go, unless there are some amazing blowout results, 1 and 2 are the Panthers and the Broncos, so they get the home semis. And I think it's going to be almost an impossible ask for any team to go and beat either of those teams away from home. Maybe the Storm, maybe. But I don't believe they're consistent enough right now to win the whole thing.
No, I don't think anyone's beat. I think Penrith are winning week 1, going straight to the grand final after that.
To the prelim final before the final.
That's what I mean. Sorry, after that, yeah. The only way that I think if Melbourne managed to finish 3rd ahead of the Warriors, it would involve the Warriors losing a game or 2.
Well, yeah, it would be. Yeah, well, the Storm would have to win both their last 2 games. Warriors would have to lose
both. Yeah,
have to lose.
The only
one of them, mate. Yeah.
One of them. That's the only way I could see Brisbane losing in the first week. I think any other team the Broncos would win, but if it's the Storm, they could very well lose that.
Who's the best team in the NPC right now? I'll tell you on the points table, it's Taranaki and Hawke's Bay. I still maintain it's Canterbury because until they lose, I've just got a Crusaders thing going on. Taranaki have got 4 bonus points out of their 4 matches. But
okay, well,
I don't know.
What teams are unbeaten? Taranaki, Hawke's Bay,
Canterbury, and Wellington.
Who's got the best points difference out of those 4?
Canterbury.
Canterbury the best.
Okay, but they played a game less than Hawke's Bay and Taranaki. Okay?
Yeah, but I mean,
look, Wellington play Tasman in the Shield this coming Wednesday. That's going to be an awesome game. Just, I'm pretty sure it's at night. Give me just a check on that. Just so
it'll be at 7.
Yeah, okay, 7:05. Look, I don't know what the weather's going to be doing, but if you can get along to that game and watch, A, it's a Shield challenge. B, it's 2 cracking teams. C, it's Tasman coming off a loss, and a Wellington team which, were tooey and froey against Southland. They did enough to win that game. But, I mean, if anything's going to start kickstarting this particular NPC, that's that game this Wednesday night. So much to play for. And having that silly old wooden trophy on the side, beloved trophy that it is. I say silly, I'm only being silly about saying silly, but I mean, that to me, come on, New Zealand Rugby, you've got a gift sitting in front of you.
That would, yeah. And that would be, I mean, if you were talking about the most coveted trophies that involve New Zealand teams or within New Zealand, I mean, you'd go probably Bledisloe Rugby World Cup would be the first 2. That would be the third one, wouldn't it?
Well, I mean, Tasman, because Marlborough have won it, Nelson Bay's never won it, Tasman haven't won it.
No.
So
but it's been around for so long.
It'd be enormous for them. I mean, they'd probably have a bloody street parade, as stupid as that sounds these days with the rugby. Who's the best team in the Premier League?
Man City.
It goes without saying.
Yeah, there's no one who, I mean, even Arsenal.
They play tomorrow.
Yeah, but they looked really shaky last weekend.
Look, Man City, I watched this game because my stupid dumb team lost to Spurs people, and I got up and watched that at 4:28. That's the last time I do that for a while. Crikey, look, I'm getting too old for this, watching 90 minutes of that kind of bollocks. Anyway,
if you won, you wouldn't be saying that, though.
If I won, I'd be getting up at 2 a.m. this Sunday to watch us play Forest, all right?
Yeah.
I watched Chris Wood score that goal for Forest against Sheffield United. Saw that live. It was a brilliant header. I watched Man City coast against Newcastle, and we'll talk to Tom Rooney about this shortly. Lachlan, they got no midfield, or their number one midfield's absent, right? Injured and so forth. And they've sold a couple. But it just doesn't matter, mate. They look as though they could play 5 different teams. You know, the guys they got on the bench, they coasted through that game against a Newcastle side, which is a really good side and will end up top 4 this year.
Well, all going to plan. Yeah.
And look, I was just thinking about this, thinking, you know, it wasn't just the fact they won the Champions League last year. Go through their rounds. The first round they won 7-0 in one leg, then it was 4-0 in the next round, then it was 5-0 after that, and 4-0 in the semi-final. Whatever. Mate, they're just way better than everyone else right now.
Yeah.
It's going to take a monumental effort for any team to get close to them in the Premier League.
It's a battle for second.
Who's the best team in world women's football?
Spain.
Well, that's an easy answer.
They won the World Cup.
Right.
They are the best team.
So, when Greece won the European Championships in 2004, who was the best team in Europe?
Greece.
Yes, that's it.
Because they won the Euros.
Who are the world rugby champions?
South Africa.
Who are the best team in the world at rugby? The world rugby champions, aren't they? Until proven otherwise at the next tournament. Who is the best team in men's football, world football? It's Argentina. You can argue about this as much as you want. Who's the best team in the NFL? The ones who hold the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Take it off them.
Yeah.
Who's the best team in the NRL? It's Penrith, isn't it?
Yes, it's Penrith. Absolutely.
Until somebody else wins the championship, they're it.
Yeah.
Because
Absolutely
can you play in that game? As the Lionesses couldn't. They won the European Championship, but that England women's team, they just got stage fright.
You can sit there and say that a team who are an outsider of sorts went on and won it. Oh, they're not really the best team. Well, all the teams that are supposedly better than them tripped over on the way.
There you go.
They couldn't make it, so they're not good enough.
There you go. Finally, before we get to Justin Marshall, just a second, who's the best team in international rugby? I'm not saying who are the world champions. I'm saying on paper right now, on grass, who is the best team in international rugby? It's Ireland, mate.
Yeah.
And I still maintain the other team to beat in France is Ireland. And I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, they've only made quarterfinals or whatever, and they've done. Look, since they beat us here last year, they've smashed the Six Nations. Every time I watch them play, they look faultless. You know, and that was a team that was missing players yesterday. And they got no strength and depth. Well, the guys in green jerseys looked all right to me.
Yeah, well, what really bodes well for Ireland is that everyone around them has a glaring, blatant weakness. I mean, Wales and England are awful right now, I think. And I do not think... England may not get out of their group stage. Wales definitely won't. They'll be lucky if they beat Georgia at this rate. France and now don't have their starting first five for the World Cup. South Africa have got injury troubles. They've just got Kolisi back, who looks... Geez, you see him run down that... Just
what
incredible.
knee injury?
What knee injury?
What knee injury? He chased one of the Welsh backs down for about 50 metres down the touchline.
Yeah,
he's just
incredible.
in beast mode.
Yeah. The Wallabies are in horrid form, and you've got Eddie Jones calling his own media, telling them to give themselves uppercuts, and then there's us, and it's like, well, we don't feel comfortable about ourselves. So then there's
I like our chances. I'm increasing.
I like them now. I did a bracket the other night, and I've got us making the final.
LBP with TMG. Let's be positive with Twizel's Matt Gunn. And once again, he's got to wait all weekend to watch his stupid dumb doggies lose again. They're conceding 40 points a game. This year's Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs are last year and the year before's Warriors. So as we bask in the glory, this is what it used to be like. You went in at half-time last night. You were even. What happened?
I don't know. I mean, we were try for try. We looked okay, and then all of a sudden, like can happen with the Bulldogs, 10 minutes of average football, and the game is over. At 18 all, I thought we're in this. Next thing, it's 36-18. And you just say, well, what am I doing again on a dreary Sunday evening? It was a nice day. The Sunday was great. But the evening was dreary, given that the 6:05 game, the one that we seem entrenched in and can't perform at, we need Friday night games. Thursday night, Friday night games. We need prime time games. I think the Bulldogs are too big of a show pony team to perform on a Sunday afternoon, even though Canberra Stadium was packed.
Why do they do that to you, mate? Why do they make you just watch and wait the whole friggin' weekend?
I think Raylene Castle must have made a deal before she left the Bulldogs to give us Sunday games, because we seem to have had more Sunday games than any other team in the competition since then. It's just so tiresome. Yeah, just give me something a little earlier in the week.
You've got to spend all week. I've just done a calculation. Your last 10 games, you've conceded 393 points. So that's 40 points a game you're conceding. So for the last 10 weeks of your life, every time you wait till 6 o'clock on a Sunday night to watch, you're shipping a point every 2 minutes, mate. That's what they're doing to you.
Even sadder than that is when we looked like we were competing during that game, I went to the TAB and put a bet on.
Yeah, great.
I actually thought, last week I was distraught. This week I've banged another bet on. I mean, I don't even know what I'm thinking anymore. I thought, if I don't support them, who will? And what did it do for me? It lost me a few more dollars. But what do I care? All right, we're still not going to get the spoon.
No.
Even though the Tigers had a win over the weekend with a penalty goal that just got over for them to get a 2-point victory, it doesn't matter to me. They will finish last. There's no way we can finish last. We're 6 points ahead of them.
No wooden spoon. Let's be positive. That's the point of this slot, isn't it? If we were talking the Warriors, Matt, how do you reconcile fans moaning about the fact that the team isn't playing well enough? Okay, the last 4 games, and that goes from Canberra, when Canberra had the comeback and went to Golden Point, every win has been a little patchy and a little scratchy, but every one of those wins would have been a loss last year and the year before and the year before that.
Yeah, even on the back of the scratchy performances, the Warriors are on 36 points.
Yes,
Four behind the Broncos and the Panthers.
Crazy, isn't it?
They will finish with a home semi-final, surely. And it has been the turnaround of the NRL in Martin, a competition where the Roosters and the Cowboys and the Rabbits are all on 28, still trying to make the 8. The Raiders had to beat the Dogs last night to secure themselves a place. The competition is so close. And if people Warriors fans particularly, cannot see how amazing this season has been, I don't know what you need.
Yeah.
This is the kind of thing we dream of
yes.
at Belmore.
Well, this is the kind of thing we dream of as Warriors fans, mate. I mean, this is, you pinch yourself. 15 wins. That's more than the last 2 rubbish seasons combined. 15. There's only 2 other teams in the league that have got that many wins, mate.
15 wins. And how many in a row now?
6.
Was that 6?
That's
That was
6.
6 in a row.
See, this is what I don't get. I'm sorry. I got up at 4:20 a.m. to watch my absolute a-hole of a football team get pinked and punked by Spurs on the weekend, right? I don't care. You know, I would have rather had another game like we played against Wolves where we were just shite all game and got the result. That's what I want. I just care about the result. I don't worry about anything else at this time of the season.
You have to just care about the result week to week.
Yeah.
Week to week, the Warriors, another victory, which means they've shored up their position. I mean, at the start of the year, if you'd have said sneak into the top 8, you would have been jumping up and down for joy.
Absolutely take it. No question about it, mate. Don't care
Forget
how.
about a home semi-final where the ground won't even be big enough. I mean, this is what Warriors fans have got to worry about.
When you put it like that.
You know what I mean? Sean Johnson has played the sezen of his life this year.
Yeah. I mean, you're ticking all of these boxes, and there's still people find things to moan about. I get. Look, my mother used to always say, she said, you know, there are people in life who'll moan if their bum's on fire and moan if someone's putting it out. I think this is what that attitude is, isn't it?
Oh, well, I mean, you can't expect perfection every week, but isn't it perfect to win week in, week out, regardless of the performance? I mean, you win by a point. You drop a goal in extra time, you still win. It makes no difference. The win is the win. You don't get half the points for not playing as good as you could have.
Dumb old England. Another red card on the weekend. Vunipola, shoulder hit to the face, no arms, a tackle. That and the South Africans smashing Wales with Siya Kolisi playing and running like knee injury? What knee injury? Chris Jones, Times Online, rugbypass.com with his eye all over it. Chris, well, a couple of results over the weekend. First and foremost, South Africa thrashing Wales. What do we read into that result? How good is South Africa? How poor are Wales?
Well, Wales were basically playing, I think we worked out, it was their D team in terms of the backs. They had about 39 caps between them, and boy, did it show. It was men against boys. It really was. It's to such an extent that Siya Kolisi, who's only just got back, just got out of the operating room actually, played as if he was a world beater again. He played 40 minutes of outstandingly physical rugby, but he was playing against a callow Welsh team, which a lot of those players were sort of hoping, beyond hope, they might get the call up on Monday from Warren. The only call again from Warren is thank you very much, try again in 4 years, because they just physically weren't ready for what came at them. And it was a very impressive performance, except for one key element, and that was Manny Libbok's kicking. Missed 2 penalties, missed 3 conversions, and looking on from the stands was that man, Andre Pollard. And we're just waiting for the message from the Springboks that they have somehow managed to get him back into the squad.
I sigh because of that England red card again. Vunipola doing what Farrell did. So a couple of questions about this. How long is Vunipola going to go for? And what's the story with Farrell now? World Rugby going to appeal this?
Yes, it's the Tuesday is the day for Owen Farrell, who must have his case heard again. This time there's a chap from Singapore, from New Zealand. So 3 Aussies not taking part again, who decided that that amazing intervention from Jamie George that was the basis of the mitigation for him not being banned. The furore has been such that there was always going to be some kind of action, and it's been very hard on the Farrell family because the keyboard warriors have been out and they've turned this into a "we all hate Owen Farrell" story, which is sad. But now there's distractions come along in the form of Big Billy Vunipola, who desperately needs matches to get fit enough to be anywhere near his best form. And he's probably looking at a 6-week ban, saying sorry. He'd end up with 3 weeks probably. But that means he misses the Fiji game this coming weekend, Argentina and Japan. Those are the 2 key matches in the pool. And it just so happens he is England's only number 8 in their squad.
It's just so dumb and so stupid, and you wonder why the hell they don't. And I don't see what is the difference between what Vunipola did and what Farrell did. Explain that.
Well, Jamie George wasn't in the vicinity.
Okay. Yes.
So therefore, you can't use the Jamie George protocol. And it was quite honestly, it was a lazy piece of work by Billy. His arm was tucked. He just hit him with his shoulder, and it summed up what had been going on with Billy for the much of the match. He just wasn't making any sort of positive impact, and boy, was this a negative one. In the last 4 matches, England have had 3 red cards and 4 yellows. One of those reds was eventually rescinded for Freddie Stewart. But it doesn't look good, does it? And you're not going to win anything with those sort of disciplinary problems. And all we hear from Borthwick is, we want to keep 15 players on the pitch. Well, maybe you should suggest that in the team talk to the players rather than telling the press.
Chris Jones, Times Online, rugbypass.com. How good are Ireland?
They've got fantastic strength and depth. Last 10 minutes again, they bring on Caelan Doris, who was the man of the match against Italy in the previous game. They are a very, very useful outfit. They and Scotland, along with times with France, because we haven't actually seen the best French team out yet. But Ireland and Scotland have played some really interesting attacking rugby. They have support runners either side. They can go out the back. They can take it up to the line hard. Bundy Aki looked really good playing in this system. And they're confident. They're incredibly confident. They compete hard at the breakdown and make it difficult for teams. And they filleted England's defence at times. It was just clinical lines of running and an awful lot of good decision-making. And this is a team without Johnny Sexton, who is meant to be the fulcrum of everything, but they're still scoring lots of tries and looking really good. And, it's really good to see that they aren't just peaking and then letting it all folding, that they are going to be good when they turn up at the Rugby World Cup. And that hasn't been the case, I would suggest, ever for the Irish.
That's our podcast for today. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to listen to the entire show, 1 till 4, Monday to Friday, download the Platform app, and via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to whatever shows over however many weeks at your leisure, at your listening pleasure. Platform Plus. First thing to do, though, is download the Platform app.
Devlin.
Unbelievable. Incredible.
The Platform.